Welcome to Hey Chaplain. My name is Jared Altick, and I'm a chaplain with the police department. Hey Chaplain is the officer wellness podcast which brings you expertise and wisdom from police officers around the world. If you want to help this show reach more cops, chaplains, and other first responders around the world, please share this episode. And what I mean by share is don't just casually tell someone about it, but actually send this episode through the group chat for your shift. Post it on social media and email the link to people that you know would benefit from listening to Hey Chaplain. Today's episode should probably have a sensitive content warning, but it would take me too long to list all the ways that our guest might upset you. And frankly, the reason I brought this guy on the show was to hit every sensitive topic that he could and then drop a truth bomb on us. So, our guest today is Joe Smarro. You might recognize him from the award-winning HBO documentary, Ernie and Joe, Crisis Cops. This documentary and Joe's work at the San Antonio Police Department have accelerated the conversation about how to train police to deal with mental health issues in the real world. Joe is going to hit on so many great topics as we progress through his personal story from childhood trauma to leaving law enforcement. Here's Joe Smarro. Hello, Joe. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thank you, Chaplain Jared. I really appreciate you sharing your audience with me. I'm super excited to have the conversation.
Well, fantastic. Tell me about your journey from combat to talking to people on the street with mental health issues. So bring me from point A to point B, because it's an interesting story, but it's a big gap.
It is a big gap. Yeah. How do we close that delta? So I would actually say if we could go one step beyond that of why did I even join the Marine Corps? Anyone that knows me or has heard me speak knows the story. But for those of you that have not, I think it's powerful to understand why we do the things we do. And so at 7 years old, I was experiencing sexual abuse from my mother's boyfriend that she had while married to my father. He was in the Navy. We're stationed down in Norfolk, Virginia. He was on a routine 6-month med float, and she started having an affair. That affair turned towards me, and there was a lot of sexual abuse and molesting happening. And at some point, I remember I'm on base housing. It was late morning on a weekend. My sister was in the bath. My mom was sleeping on the couch. And I grabbed a book of matches out of her purse, and I went into my bedroom, shut the door, laid underneath my bed, and I started lighting matches, trying to set my bed on fire. It eventually caught fire. The fire department, and there's no ill will. I love the firemen out there. And this fireman went and extinguished the fire. It didn't burn the house down, but it certainly burnt my bed, charred the floor and part of the wall. And he came out real aggressive, and he was like, young man, real stern in my face. And he's like, if you ever start another fire again, you'll spend the rest of your life in prison. Do you understand me? I was like, whoa, prison. I don't want to be in trouble. But I want to pause here, Jared, because this is what drives the work I do today in teaching first responders, parents, it doesn't matter. I had told my mom that abuse was happening. She didn't receive it, or she denied it. She said, no, that's not happening. We don't talk about those things. But here's what I want your listeners to understand is that when you don't listen to someone's words, their behaviors will always tell the truth. And it's not that I consciously knew, I'm going to go set my bed on fire. But clearly there was something in my subconscious that was like, yeah, let's burn this bed down because I don't like what's happening in there at night. Right. And sadly, because my mom and Steve weren't smart enough to make that correlation that's why I did it, I just got looked at as a bad kid. The abuse continued. At some point, my sister called our grandmother up in New York, told her what was happening. She gets a hold of my father. He tells the Navy. They fly him home. And it was pure chaos. And a lot of bad stuff happened there. I ended up not going to third grade the first time. I was in therapy 3 days a week. I was in and out of court. We moved up to New York. And for the next 8 years, my father sadly was an alcoholic, worked a lot, but I never really saw him unless there was some level of violence. And he would come in my room at night and just beat on me, kick me, knock me out, knock teeth out. It was pretty rough. And same thing with his girlfriends at the time. And at 15 years old, I finally remember saying I've had enough. I'm done. I'm leaving home. And he's like, no, you're not. I was like, no, I promise I am. And I did. And I started staying with friends. And I had the same girlfriend, 9th grade, 10th grade, and 11th grade. And finally, my junior year of high school, my girlfriend's parents took me and they said, hey, Joey, as they used to call me. You can come stay here. We know that you're all over the place. Come stay here for a while. And I was like, oh, thank God. Like, but I was a junior in high school, chap. Like, I didn't have a job. I only got through high school because of sports, but I really wanted to thank her parents. And so I was like, how can I pay them back? And then it hit me. And I was like, I know what I'll do as a gift. I'm going to get their daughter pregnant. And that's a joke, Jared. I'm glad you got it. But yeah, that's what happened. And sadly, I became a father my senior year of high school. That's why I joined the Marine Corps. So that context matters. That set the stage for me of knowing that I just wanted to go to college to play soccer. Like, that was my escape. But when you become a father as a child, things change. And she was born in 99. She's 25 now and doing great. But in 2000, I joined the Marine Corps right after high school. And then 9/11 happens. Now I find myself deployed to Afghanistan right after 9/11. Pretty uneventful employment. Not a lot happened. A couple air missions, taking over some of the airfields. And it was truly uneventful. But then we get back for a few months, and then they're like, all right, we're going to go over to Iraq now. And we're like, okay, whatever. And we got over there, and that was a very different game. I was there with the 1st Marine Division in March when we crossed over into Iraq up Highway 1, and we invaded the country. And it was incredibly traumatic. The level of exposure to just carnage, to the absolute worst of humanity on both sides. It was very, very difficult for me. And while I understood logically, like, I have to survive this, I knew the first time I shot and killed an Iraqi soldier, I broke. Like, it killed me. And the fact that I was celebrated for it by my own peers, by my command, really messed. Like, it was a moral injury like you wouldn't believe to me, because I was like, I don't want to do this. I just want to go home. And so then when I got out of the Marine Corps, surviving it physically, not mentally, it was like, okay, I'm 22. I don't have a degree. I don't really have any skills other than don't die. What can I go do? I guess I'll go be a police officer. And moved to San Antonio, Texas, got on the police department. And even that, 364 days into my policing career, I get a call for a guy screaming in a parking lot. I show up. He's staring into space, flat affect. I'm like, hey, buddy, what's going on? Nothing. Won't acknowledge me. Won't look at me. Hey, sir, what's your name? Nothing. I'm like, oh, man. I can't get him to talk to me at all. And I was like, look, man, I'm a rookie. I've got to scratch a report out saying that I talked to you. Just lie to me. Like, make up a name and birthday and I'm going to leave. Trying to like joke with him, wouldn't acknowledge it. And eventually I was like, come on, I got to get you identified. Walk to my car. He complies. But as soon as we get to my car, he has a change of mind and punches me in the face. Now the fight's on. Nothing came off my belt, chap. No taser, pepper spray, baton, nothing. But it was also right at shift change. And so it took 7 minutes and 24 seconds in a large city for cover to show up. And it took 4 of us, men, no weapons, no taser, no pepper spray, just to get him handcuffed. And as soon as we handcuffed him, he died. And so then I have an in-custody death for excited delirium syndrome back when that was allowed. And that was in 2007. And it really just was the beginning of the end for me. I spiraled out of control. I remember thinking, like, I was riding a desk 8 weeks, being investigated for admin, for an in-custody death. I was a probationary officer for 1 more day. And so I knew, like, I'm probably going to get fired. Thankfully, I didn't. But I remember that feeling of suddenly feeling like I'm an outcast to my own department, being the young officer that, like, just responded to a call, got assaulted, did his best to use jujitsu to hold this guy there until more people showed up, got him handcuffed, he died. And now all of a sudden, like, I'm an outcast. And it wasn't a very warm, welcome feeling for me. And that was when my life really took a downward spiral. I was drinking way too much, trying to sleep. Women became my drug, truly. I'm not proud of it. But by the time I was 31 years old, I already had 3 divorces. I had 4 kids from 3 women. And the worst part of that was 2 of those years, to your question, I was on the mental health unit. And I remember feeling one day like my second wife was leaving me, and she was like, I hate you, but something is seriously wrong with you. And because I had cheated, I got caught like I always did. And I remember sitting there thinking, like, I just don't want to do this anymore. Like, I need to just end my life. I was staring at my gun belt in my apartment. Like, if I just kill myself, my kids won't have to deal with this pain. I won't have to deal with this pain. I'm tired of being a disappointment to my family. All I do is mess up. And for whatever reason, in that moment, I just decided like, I'm going to go to the VA. I'm just going to walk into the VA and be like, look, I'm physically fine. I'm not burnt. I don't have prosthetics, but something's wrong. And thankfully, I know that people have some bad stories about the VA, but I am a huge advocate because I was very lucky to get good people initially. And I had a great therapist who was a retired Navy cook, and he was really good with me. And it really did save my life. And it took me years. It's been like 13, 14 years now, and I'm still engaged in therapy. I don't go to the VA anymore for mental health. I have a private one that I pay for, but because I've been with her for like 7 years now. But I am a huge advocate of treatment and therapy. When I was on the mental health unit, I realized how big of a hypocrite I was. I was showing up every day with the best advice in the world, but I became a master at wearing a mask. And in high school, my nickname was Smiley. I was the class clown 4 years in a row. Check the yearbooks. But I was acutely suicidal, essentially unhoused and never feeling safe. And then now as an adult, it's like, yeah, this is the same thing. Like I'm a good officer. I'm not getting in trouble. Like, yeah, I got investigated for the in-custody death. Nothing came of it. I didn't do anything wrong, but it was still a grueling process. And I know I'm a good officer. And so I showed up every day, giving people the greatest advice. Just go to the doctor, take your medication, follow your treatment plan. You'll never have to deal with the police. And then I was going home and still an absolute mess. And it was probably almost 2 years before I started getting help. The beauty of this for me was what I realized very quickly. One, the more I was helping myself, I realized how similar I was to the people I was dealing with on the mental health unit. Not how different, how similar. And two, what I really learned very fast was, so what's interesting about this is the more I help myself, the better I'm actually able to show up and help other people. And that was the light bulb moment for me where I was like, well, wait a minute. Why aren't we all doing this? Like, why is therapy not mandatory for all first responders? Because in my opinion, we would have a very different response in our country and in every community if every officer was forced to actually talk through their stuff. But instead, it's still heavily stigmatized and there's a lot of fear around it.
I know several police officers who have similar childhood backgrounds and also at home situations, very dysfunctional, bit self-destructive. Why do you think that some people go through trauma and difficult home life and turn toward crime, but others join the military and join the police department? Why is there that split between these two groups who come from maybe the same place?
Yeah, it's such a powerful question. And short of sounding arrogant, I feel like I absolutely know the answer to this. When we are children and bad things happen to us, trauma, whatever it is, neglect, abuse, sexual abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse, like any level of abuse or neglect or abandonment, mental illness in the household. So there's something called ACEs, which are adverse childhood experiences. And so I'm a 9 on that assessment, but based on whatever happens, because it's different for everyone, even though it's unique. Like a lot of people have very similar stories, but how it shows up is going to be different in everybody. Now, I would say that that split, which is a very interesting question of like, why do some people turn to crime or substances because it's the numbing behavior. I wouldn't say they turn to crime. I would say they turn to a numbing behavior that ultimately leads to crime. And the numbing behavior is the avoidance of feeling anything. When you go to the military, and I have no doubt my life probably would have went that way if not for the Marine Corps. So I had to get very good at hiding it even better. Again, a pornography addiction is so prevalent in military and first responders, but it's not criminal. And so it's like, oh, this isn't a big deal. Like, yeah, I watch porn a few hours a day or in my vehicle or at home when the family's not around or when I'm in the bathroom, but I'm not using it for arousal or masturbation. So like, what's the big deal? Not realizing that like, oh, actually, when we're consuming pornography, you're getting the same levels of dopamine dumped as if you're in a firefight, which is why so many combat vets do this. Now, again, I think what happens is it's called confirmation bias, right? And I had this until I was probably 37 years old, truly, and I'm 43 now. I had this genuine belief that like, if my mom and dad can't love me, protect me, take care of me, then obviously it's me. I'm not lovable. I'm not worthy of anything good. And so when I have this real belief, not like just oh, woe is me, I'm a victim, but like, no, a genuine structure of I am not worthy of being protected, loved, safe. I will then validate my beliefs externally because this is the way we work as human beings. I tell first responders because I know my story is not unique. There's a lot of people, I've met a lot of them as I travel around North America providing training. And I tell them, listen, you would not tolerate the things that happen in the relationship you're in if you actually learn to love yourself. The things that you tolerate in your relationship is because it validates a belief you have, which is, oh, this is just a perpetuation of what happened when I was a kid, which is instability, chaos. So even with me, because I didn't believe relationships were real, love is a real thing, nothing ever lasts, because that's all I ever knew. If I was in a relationship and things were going really well, I would panic thinking, there's no way this lasts. I need to hurry up and destroy this before she destroys me. Let me just get ahead of it. And so I think as children, when they have these traumatic environments, they are more prone to seeking external validation. And that comes in the way of groups, cliques, gangs, drugs, crime, stealing things, because you attract the wrong crowd because you have such a desire to belong. And a group of misfits is going to accept the misfits, not realizing why they're doing it at all. But all it takes is getting caught one time as a 14, as a 15, as a 16-year-old. Now talk about the ultimate belief validation. Oh, I just caught a charge. I guess I am a criminal. My teachers were right. My parents were right. I am going to never amount to anything. This is why over 80% of the people, adults in our prison systems have a 4 or higher ACE score. It's not that they're bad people. And it's not that, and it's an excuse. And I want people to understand this because I have, again, a 9 ACE score, a lot of trauma. No amount of trauma is ever going to excuse knowing right from wrong. Like I had a lot of trauma and I knew the things I was doing was wrong.
But here's explanatory. It's explanatory. Even if it's not an excuse, it explains how the person got there.
Absolutely. Because trauma creates apathy towards consequence. Meaning I don't care if I get, in fact, I expect to get caught because this only validates what I believe about myself, which is I'm not worthy. When you have no or very low self-worth, you're going to welcome a lot of terrible things into your life. And it's not until you are willing to forgive the things that happened, forgive yourself for what you've done, heal, truly heal, like inner child work, trauma work, like truly heal, not avoid, not mask it, not, because here's the reality. And this statement usually affects a lot of people when I share it, but you need to hear it. You cannot outperform, out-achieve, out-promote, out-distract, out-earn what happened to you. What happened to you as children was never your fault. But everything in your adult life is your responsibility. And I don't care if you have a PhD and you're the police chief or you're the sheriff or you have all these accolades. What happened to you does not leave you. And all you've done is created a massive distraction thinking, oh, I'll just out-earn it. I'll outperform it. But I want you to think about this. If the only thing in life that matters is how you feel about yourself when you're by yourself, then how you living. And a lot of people that are high achievers, when they lay alone at night and they lay there in their own thoughts, it's a very scary place to be. And it's because they have not done the work to actually heal and undo and forgive the stuff that happened to them.
I'm going back to when you joined the mental health unit.
Okay.
You were not yet at a place where you were really healthy and thinking in healthy ways about yourself. How
Correct.
did you find yourself on the mental health unit at San Antonio PD?
Yeah. So of the Marine Corps training, of all the high-speed training I did in the Marine Corps to the police department, San Antonio is, I would argue, one of the best and hardest police academies. It's one of the longest. It's nearly 8 months long. And there's a lot of great training at the academy. And it all just was like lost on me. I was like underwhelmed by it. I'm not impressed by it. Like I get the functionality of it. I get why we have to do this, but also coming from the Marine Corps, I was like, it's kind of rudimentary. Then I went through the 40-hour CIT training. I had about 2 or 3 years on the department, and I went through the 40 hours of CIT, and I was like, whoa, this to me is what police work should be. Like, why is this a specialty training to teach me how, like, yeah, I get it. We're categorizing like, oh, this is for people that have a mental health issue, but truly everyone that's calling the police has an emotional disturbance issue. Like you don't call the police because things are going well in your life, right? So it's like everyone's calling the police because they're in a moment of crisis. Maybe they don't have a diagnosis, but all you just did was teach me how to effectively communicate with them. Why is this not everywhere? And this has been, and I know this is going to ruffle feathers, and I know the history of CIT really well. But I will say my disagreement with CIT International's stance is that it should only be for the 25% of departments. It should only be voluntary. I've never agreed with that. And here's why. Based on evidence, San Antonio Police Department's 2,500 cops. Originally, it was 10% was the goal. Cool. We hit 10%. And as the mental health unit, we were a training unit also. So we trained the 10%, got it done. Then the chief, instead of going to 20 or 25, he was like, we're going to do 100. And we were like, whoa, that's a big lift, chief. And he was like, yeah. And we were running, I think we were doing about 19 40-hour schools a year for 2 years to get everyone through. And I remember so many times these older, salty veteran, crusty officers with 20, 25, 30 years come in on Monday morning, and they would say something to the effect of, I just want you to know right up front, boot, because I had like 5, 6 years on. I don't believe in any of this hug-a-thug stuff. I truly considered retiring before I ever came to this training. I think this is a waste of time. This is not police work. We should not be doing this. And I think it's a joke what you're doing. And I'm like, that's awesome, man. Thank you so much for your perspective. Your name tent is right over there. Welcome to the training. And I was like, what am I going to say to this? Right. But I knew, like, we're just going to do our thing. Anytime you force an officer to do something, mandate it, they resist it. But wouldn't you know it there, chap? Wouldn't you know that so many of them that were the most vocal on Friday afternoon would come up in like secret, like, hey man, come here. That was really good. And I'm like, oh, was it? And they're like, yeah, I wish I had this 30 years ago. I thought this was everything. Now I would say that CIT, and I know that again, controversial, but I have seen probably 20 different versions across the country. Nobody does it the same anywhere. I know CIT International has their toolkit and they've got their model to follow. There's all these different versions out there. Everyone's doing their own thing. And I have seen some models that are not effective at all. I have seen some models that create no behavior change. And I have seen models that absolutely create that transformational experience. And I would argue that in San Antonio, it did because I saw it continuously. So many officers that were resistant are now, and what you also found out, and this won't shock you probably, is the ones that were most aggressively against it were personally affected by it, meaning their wife, their child, their sibling, their parent, someone had a mental health issue. They were frustrated by the system, and they were just mad about all things mental health. This actually gave them some hope, and they became huge advocates, and it was a powerful, powerful thing. And I'm like, look at how many of these people would have never joined if we kept it voluntary. And now they're out there advocating. They're telling us all this stuff about, oh man, you're not going to believe this, Joe. I had this call where I would have normally shot and killed this guy and been able to legally do it. But because of the skills, because we're reinforcing it through the role plays, like, it's powerful. And now, as an owner of a company that gets to travel around the country and provide that to the smaller rural departments, it's so powerful to get that feedback of, yeah, I really didn't want to do this, but like, you guys made it super engaging. You made it personal. You made it about us. And you taught us the actual skills that we can go out there and use them. Like, I believe, now I'm a believer, and we're converting a lot of people to believing in what the power of CIT is. I want to make one more distinction. To me, this is very similar to crisis negotiation or hostage negotiation training. It blows my mind in 2025, still in this country, that all these departments, especially the bigger departments that have these units, that for you to get the training, the 40 or 80 hour, if it's basic or advanced, crisis de-escalation or crisis negotiation training, you have to have a couple years on, 5 years on, you have to apply, why is that not a standard in every police academy in America? Because the only thing you're truly teaching is how to effectively communicate. And like, yeah, you're using all the toys and the equipment and the trucks, but at the core, all you're teaching is active listening and how to do it really well. That should be a mandate in every training academy, because you should not be able to be a police officer in this country until you know how to effectively communicate with people. That's all CIT really is. And then learning resources. That's all it is. But we have so much fear around it. And like, oh, I don't want to go talk to those type of people. Well, that's cool. But until dispatch calls your number and you're allowed to say like, yeah, you know what, dispatch, I don't want that one. What else you got in the queue? Yeah, no thanks. Next. We don't have that luxury. Nope. So you shouldn't have the luxury of how prepared you are to show up to those calls.
Yeah, I've done the 40-hour CIT training at our department and was so impressed with the information that was being given to our officers, including young officers. We had young officers in there. And when I'm on ride-alongs, a lot of the most impressive responses that I've ever seen police officers do, where they were wise and savvy to be able to unlock what looked like an impossible, Gordian knot. This is not, this cannot be talked through. And yet they did, and they de-escalated it. That almost every time I can trace that back to the CIT training they took. I mean, some people have a natural,
absolutely,
innate understanding, and they just get it, but most don't. And so the CIT training made a huge difference there. So, and it really impacted you. It clicked with you. Tell me about the work you did in the mental health unit.
Yeah, so we were very unique in the sense that we were fully plain clothes, not soft uniform, dressed down, fully plain clothes, jeans and polos, inside the pant holster. So our weapon was concealed, badge on a chain under the shirt. That was it. So no identifiers. Our patrol cars were unmarked as well, but they had a cage, and that's how we would show up. We were not a true co-responder unit. We had 3 clinicians embedded into our mental health unit, but we were not paired up with a clinician. We were always paired up 2 officers to each call. A clinician, if they were going to come up, was always in a chase car, or the reality of our clinicians, the way we best utilize them, was actually for case management. So we would go do the initial call, the initial de-escalation, the initial hospitalization if required. Then we would give them the report. They would get through the MOUs with the hospitals. And if the patient was willing to sign a waiver, some would, some would not. Then they would just get notified if the person got out. If the person did not sign it, no worries. They would just go follow up like a week after they were hospitalized. And then they would just manage them. They had 42 people on each of their caseloads. And it was just like checking in, like proactively checking in. Do you have your meds? Do you need transportation? Do you have an appointment? How are you doing? Instead of waiting for the 911 call, waiting for the escalation, they were really good at managing the people post discharge, post intervention. So we had great success doing that. That 100% of our response, because we were also the only unit on the police department that could self-assign our calls through the CAD system. And so in our patrol cars, we had the computer. One of the things we did a lot of really cool things. I'll share a couple, but one was mental health calls used to come in about 9 or 10 different ways, right? Overdose in progress, suicide, a jumper, disturbance. There were so many different ways that it would come in. So we worked together with the department, with dispatch, to create a mental health problem code to where it was just mental health. And then there was 3 categories, and it was mental health routine, mental health disturbance, mental health in progress. Mental health in progress is actively suicidal, threatening to jump off something's going on right now. Disturbance is more than one person involved. It's an acute crisis, family's involved, something's going on, but they need help right now. And then routine is like, 40-year-old man calling saying he feels sad because his wife left him, or, he's suicidal, doesn't have a plan. It's routine. So then we could just click on it on the screen, self-assign. The key card is assigned to us. We never had to get dispatch involved. Obviously, they can see we assigned. They see we're going to the call, but it just kept us off the radio. We had free reign. We were never tied to a clock. Some shifts we would have 1 call. It would take 7 hours. Some shifts we'd have 15 calls, right? Because they were quick and easy. So it was never the same, which I loved. But I also loved that we never had pressure to hurry up, get to the next one. People are in your square taking your call. Like, no, we knew as a specialized unit, we were never going to get to 100% of the mental health calls. In fact, we were only responding to a very, very select few. Probably 5% of the mental health calls that came in, the mental health unit got to. Now, 100% of our patrol was trained. So they're all capable. They're all equipped. Another thing we did was created a navigator program through hospital funding. STRAC was the third party, the Southwest Texas Regional Advisory Council. But what they did is they put a clinician at a dispatch center, and there was a policy that said, patrol, anytime you have a behavioral health patient in your car, you have to call this local number 24/7. That clinician has all of the hospitals, all of the beds on a screen in real time. Geofence, where are you? Who is this patient? 3-minute triage. Okay, you're going to go to this hospital. Instead of giving the officer autonomy to go to the nearest hospital, which is not the best for the patient, it would just mess everything up. So we created a streamlined system. So the patient would get faster, more effective care. Then the officer would say, all right, 10-4, hang up. The dispatcher would then call the hospital and say, hey, we've got SAPD en route with this patient. They're expected to be there in 9 to 12 minutes. Awesome. They expect them. They show up. quick handoff. They're in and out 5 to 10 minutes max. They're gone instead of sitting on the wall for 3 hours, 6 hours. So it was a great system. And then one more, it was called Impact, which it's changed its name many times, but the initial program was Integrated Mobile Partner Action Care Team. And it was a mental health officer, a licensed clinician, and a paramedic. 3 of them together. We identified our top 100 911 utilizers in the city, costing millions and millions of dollars a year. And instead of waiting for them to call 911, like our top guy, I think he was calling 911 about 400 times a year. He had like 305 ED visits in 1 year, costing like $2.5 million. And so, and he would tell us, like, because he would call and say, hey, I'm going to kill myself. I have a knife. I'm standing outside. And we'd show up. He'd drop his knife. He had his backpack with his clothes. He's ready to go.
Right.
And he would say, like, I'm just lonely.
Yep.
Right. And so the Impact team would proactively show up instead of waiting for a call. Hey, we're here. Like, you don't need to call. And we saw a 67% reduction in 911 calls from our top 100 people. Unbelievable, proactive, progressive programs. Really cool. So yeah. And then we were a training unit as well. And the last thing, because it matters to me the most, Chap, is I pushed and advocated hard and I actually got it through. But we had 3 suicides in our department in the last 18 months. One of the things that we were not prepared for when I went to the mental health, because when I went, it was a pilot. It was 6 months pilot, and then it became a unit. It was just 4 of us. Then went to 6, then 10, then 13. Now it's at 44, I think. It's 24/7 now. Yeah, it's grown wild. But I remember one day I went to work and the lieutenant was like, hey, Joe, we need you to go to this house. It's of an officer. And I'm like, for what? Like, oh, he's suicidal. I'm like, whoa. Like, no, I don't do that. Like, that's not. And they're like, no, do it. You're the mental health unit. Go do it. And I'm like, and I thought somehow it was going to be so different. It's not. They're people. And then when we had 3 suicides, I was like, okay, there's a problem. I was fortunate to be invited out to NYPD in 2019 at the Suicide Prevention Symposium. They were doing 350 leaders around the world were there. And I was invited by Perf to share my story. And it was so frustrating to me that we have all this data from Dr. John Mann, Chopko and colleagues, Columbia, longitudinal study. So all this stuff, we know the problem. And yet I'm telling my department, like, hey, there's more we could do. There's more we could do. And they're like, it's fine. We have 3 psychologists. We have peer support. I'm like, it's not about resources, guys. Like, this is not a resource problem. And so I said, hey, we've got to do something. Like, we, as a training unit, we have to teach, because every officer has to do 8 hours of mental health updates every 3 years. So I said, listen, in 2020, this was like feather in my cap before I left the department. In the end of 2019, I said, we're going to hit the mental health updates. I'll hit all the learning objectives, but let me carve out 90 minutes at the end of the day, every Tuesday. Every officer is coming through in service. Let me carve out the last 90 minutes and put together a wellness and self-care class just for SAPD. And I sent it up. I waited for permission, never got it officially. I was like, I'm just going to do it and see what happens. From January to March, teaching that class. We shut the academy down in March because of COVID, opened it back up the last week of June. And then I left. I resigned in September. In 6 months, teaching a 90-minute class, 23 SAPD officers came up to me after saying, all right, Joe, you got me. Like, you got me, man. I put my gun in my mouth last night, this morning, last week. I'm suicidal. I drink 25 beers a day every day when I get off shift. I'm drunk all the time. I'm drunk right now. I'm addicted to porn. And I'm like, I remember the first few, I was like, why are you telling me? Like, we have all these resources. That's all I've been told for years. And then I was like, oh, this is not about the resources. So then back to our Venn diagram, the thing I've learned is that opportunity has to overlap with willingness, or first responders will not seek help. Police departments, I know a lot of officers listen to this. Please do not throw another resource at the problem thinking you are doing anything with the problem. We have more resources than we've ever had in the history of our profession. There are more resources readily available. Whether people know about them, don't know about them, they're private, they're virtual, they're in person, they're inpatient, they're outpatient. There are so many resources. It's not about resources. The ones that are most willing to use resources are the ones that have the awareness to recognize they need the help. The ones that are most likely to kill themselves, lack the insight to know they need the help, are least likely to access the resources, are likely to never use the resources. Those are the ones we have to reach. And how do we reach them? It's a culture problem. We have to start from training. It's a top-down, bottom-up, middle-out, full revamp. A chief and a sheriff can't just say the words reading a poster like, no, we care about our officers. We have readiness programs and wellness and resiliency, and we love people and yay. But as soon as an officer reaches out for help and they get their gun taken and they're riding a desk and now all of a sudden they're pushed out and they don't feel like they're part of the family anymore, all that does is send the signal to everyone else like, oh no, it's not okay to ask for help. And so I'll just continue to bottle it up. And remember what I said, when people don't listen to your words, the behaviors always reveal the truth. This is why I truly believe cops do dumb things. It's not because they're racist or bad people. It's because they got some stuff going on at home.
Yeah.
They got some stuff going on in their head. They got some stuff going on in their heart. And when they lose their mind on a traffic stop or on a domestic and they know they're on camera, it has nothing to do with that call or that person.
Nope,
it has everything to do with the last 24, 72 hours, a month, a week, whatever it is. And instead of punishing them only, what I advocate for is every department that has internal affairs, that's where you also put a clinician. And you say, hey, you did this thing and there's a consequence. We have to sanction the behavior and we genuinely care about you. I want you to talk to somebody.
We recognize that this behavior
Something's
was
wrong.
a symptom.
Something is wrong. Yes.
Yeah.
But instead we're quick to throw the book and suspend and punish and then just like, we did our part. All they're going to do is believe they're not supported. They're not allowed to feel anything negative. And the only place for that to go is onto their families, which is why it's so chaotic, or out into the community, which is why there's such a disconnection and friction.
You're doing great work at San Antonio. Why resign?
Yeah. So honestly, Chap, like not going to sugarcoat it. The documentary, for people that have not seen the documentary, Ernie and Joe Crisis Cops, that documentary effectively ruined my career. The filmmaker, Jen McShane, brilliant. This film, please understand, this was 3 years of filming. It wasn't a surprise. 3 years of filming, 300 hours of footage to go down to 96 minutes, which is why it won the Emmy for editing. And it was no surprise. Everyone knew this was happening. She tried 17 times to sit down with our chief of police to get an interview with him. He denied all of them. He wanted nothing to do with it, but he approved for this to happen. PIO knew it was happening. Everyone knew it was happening. I went to the department. I tried to say, hey, I don't want to do this documentary anymore. After like a year, I was going through a divorce. And I said, listen, I'm going through some personal stuff because they were following me home. They're not just on duty, they're off duty. I wasn't getting compensated for it. I wasn't getting comp time. I wasn't getting paid, which is fine. But I was like, listen, I'm going through a personal situation here. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. Can I please get out of this? And they're like, nope, it's part of your job. They wanted to film you. You're on daylight. Keep doing it. And I was like, man. And I mean, kudos to Jen and her team. She was very sensitive in the footage she used of me going through the divorce, coming home to my house being just totally cleared out from my ex-wife. And they filmed me like staring in my empty walls. And it was really, really personal stuff. And they didn't use it, which I appreciated. When it premiered at South by Southwest, it won Audience Choice Award. HBO picks it up. The chief instantly is offended. And he's like, oh, if these guys want to go be movie stars, they can leave. And I was like, whoa, like, hold on a second. Like, I don't want to be a movie star. And I didn't want to do this.
They're trying to get out of it. Yeah.
Yeah. What is happening? They held 3 private screenings here in San Antonio for him that his secretary put on his calendar. Yep, he's going to be there. All right. People are showing up. He ghosted all 3 of them. He ordered his command staff, do not support that film. I had his command staff come up to me in a bathroom, urinal to urinal, saying, Joe, I'm sorry, I don't know what's happening, man. But he's told us, do not support this film. And I used to like play really nice and just pretend and like, say, no, it's no big deal. But truly, and I even have a line in my book, and I don't say this like I'm being serious about this. I am so grateful because to me, the old saying that many people know is people don't leave jobs, they leave leaders or people. And I loved the San Antonio Police Department. I loved being a police officer. I loved working on the mental health unit. I loved it. It truly saved my life. I cannot stand emotionally stunted leadership. Most police departments are led by emotionally stunted men. There's some great ones out there for sure, but a lot of them not. The line in my book is the chief has no idea how often he makes my gratitude journal, because if he was a good leader, I would probably still be a police officer. And I have had so much success, freedom, met incredible people, got to do a lot of really powerful work in the last 4.5 years since I've left that I've never been able to do. So I was really frustrated. I had my business already for 3 years, but it was really just a side hustle. And my therapist was like, Joe, you have to pick a date and leave. Let's commit to it. And you'll be amazed. You're passionate. You're in this for the right reason. Good things are going to happen. And I was like, I was terrified because again, child support, healthcare, 4 kids, just a mess. And I was so afraid, and what a blessing, because I left in September of 2020. And then 2021, the business grew 900% in 1 year just from focusing on it full time. And then by the second year, we were already a 7-figure business. And then we just hired. And now it's like, oh my goodness. And not only that, the freedom, the financial to take care of my family is great, but the people I get to meet, the impact I get to have. And then I had time to write my book. I travel around doing keynotes now, a bunch of conferences. I would have never been able to do this if I stayed on the department. And the pension, San Antonio has one of the best pensions in the nation if you max it out. If you make it to the full 28 years, you get 87.5%. That was another 13 years for me. A 20-year pension as a patrol officer, take home pay was $1,900 a month. And people were like, yeah, but that's for the rest of your life. And I'm like, yeah, and I can make 5x that doing 1 hour keynote at a conference. Right. I'm just going to go do that. So, and I've been very, very blessed. And I was so afraid of the thing I couldn't see, but this is where faith comes in, chap. Believing the thing we cannot see. Yep. And my therapist could see something that I did not. And it wasn't until I shed that weight that I was able to step into the freedom that I'm in now, where I'm just able to make my own decisions, think for myself, get back on the podcast, do things like this, and not have to worry that I'm going to get in trouble for trying to help someone the wrong way or too hard or something.
Yeah. If people are listening to this and they feel a passion for what you're doing and want to contact you, want to get a hold of you, want to hire you, how do they find you?
Yeah, 2 ways. So easy is joesmarro.com is my personal website. And then solutionpointplus.com is the company website. There's 4 verticals to access Joe Smarro, the work we do, right? The first one, the easiest one, the lowest ticket is buy the book. My book, Unarmed, it's de-escalation techniques to cultivate courage, compassion, and connection. We didn't really get into it, but my work, I went 11 years on the 7th largest city in this country, the 12th largest police department, over 8,400 human contacts, the sickest of the sick, not one use of force. My obsession with understanding human behavior is in this book. I teach you our protocol, which is CCRTC, that's the de-escalation protocol. Curiosity leads to connection, which develops rapport, establishes trust, and gains compliance. And it breaks all those steps down. And so the book, $19-20 on Amazon. You can get that through my website or just straight on Amazon, Unarmed Joe Smarro. So that's easy 1. 2, keynotes, conferences, big stage talks or breakout events, either one. That's to get me to come speak at anything. Happy to do that. I love doing it. 3, our highest ticket is training. Whether that's me or my team, I have 10 facilitators right now working with me around the US, and we're deployed all over the country doing different trainings. We have 1 days, 2 days, 3 days, and 5 days, multiple different options. All of that is on the Solution Point Plus website. And then we also have online courses, which is the tail end. Again, if you just are like, I want a virtual world, my department's not going to pay for training, but I want to watch some of these courses. Again, 9 of our most popular courses are online. The link is also on the website, so everything's there. So those are the 4 verticals and opportunities. And then on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, it's all Joe Smarro. So again, chap, I really appreciate you sharing your audience with me. I look forward to connecting with any of them. And if anyone listens to this and made it this far and connects with me on Instagram and sends me a message saying, hey, Chaplain podcast guest here, the first 3 that do that, I will, if you're comfortable sending me your address, I'll send you a free signed copy of my book as a gift to your audience, chap. I'm happy to do that.
That's fantastic. Joe, thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. And I wish you all the best in your journey, and the work you're doing in the police department is noble. And so thank you for what you're doing as well.
What I really like about Joe's story is how his own mental health and the mental health of the people that he encountered in the street were intertwined. And the healthier that he got, the better he could help others. And the more that he identified with them and saw the common ground that they shared, the more effective he was. When a police officer has a moral failing, whether it's at work or at home, I can't help as a chaplain but to see that as a symptom of something else. And that's not to say that that person shouldn't be punished, that there shouldn't be consequences. But I think there's a reason for why people do the things they do. And Joe's work and Joe's story, I think, shed a lot of light on that. On the next episode of Hey, Chaplain.
And then it's funny because they cuss a lot less when the chaplain's there, except there's that one or two who cuss a lot more when the chaplain's there. And, they'll be people, they'll be humans. And it's funny because they're trying to get a rise out of me.
Yeah.
And I don't try to out-cuss the cops, but I'm never offended. They're just words, and, it's just how they're venting stress and speaking out trauma. But man, I just love when they'll, I'll be a part of those conversations, and just, when you show up month after month and roll call after roll call, they just kind of know you, they recognize you, and they're looking forward to you being there.
The views expressed here are the personal views of the host and our guest and do not necessarily represent the views of any law enforcement agency or its components. If you like this episode, please share it with a cop or someone who loves a cop. And I mean it, like text it to them right now. Thank you for listening to Hey Chaplain. And as always, pray for peace in our city.